and welcome to Mk8 GTI Central here. So we got Zach.
Right. So this is my 2023 GTI 40th anniversary edition. I just picked it up a couple of weeks ago, and coming from a Mazda Speed 3, it's definitely a vastly different platform. Definitely really dials it in for this new generation. So far driving it, it's been a blast. It's been extremely fun, even with DSG coming from the manual with the speed.
All right. Zach definitely told us about his impressions of the new GTI. We know it's an awesome platform. We know that Volkswagen has been refining this engine, this drivetrain, this chassis over many years. We've worked with them over many years. And what's really cool is that Zach's car here is bone stock, just like ours is, at least for now. And before we get really crazy into the modifications and the tuning, it would be really interesting to put both of these cars on a dyno, see what power they make, and also see Volkswagen's claim that this thing will apparently make full power in 87 octane, which is what's in the tank right now, versus 93 in this one, is indeed correct. So we're going to be strapping this on the dyno very, very shortly. We're going to be strapping it same day hours, and then after that, of course, we're gonna modify and we're gonna build up on that. But we're gonna get a baseline. We're gonna get consistency across the two vehicles, and even before we do that, I think it's good to do a little walk around just to see some of the differences and similarities between these cars. So yours is a 23, right?
Yes.
So 40th anniversary, 2023, this is a 2022. Obviously, this is visually a much more interesting car. I love the dark gray that you've got, the headlights that are nice, a really nice add-on versus our more basic headlights. But really, the 19-inch wheels set this off with the ring that matches the GTI, the black roof, black mirrors, on the base car. We don't get that, and the wheels of being 17s are not nearly as visually appealing. Of course, you can change all that. You can mod that to your heart's desire. But if you want something that from the factory looks a little bit more, pops a little bit more than something like this that's a little bit more specced out, can be to your taste. In the interior, they actually are quite similar. You get the bigger infotainment screen, but the seats, you got the tartan seats with the cloth.
They brought back the classic cloth, but in a little bit of a new design, so it's kind of toned down. But I really like the design this year, and you won't be missing out on much by going with a lower model. But I still love my 40th. Wouldn't change it for the world.
Another cool thing is if you look at the engine bay, well, first of all, the two engine bays are identical visually between the 22 and the 23. And here in Canada, nobody or none of the dealers are allowed to put the engine covers on these. So ours came without an engine cover, and the reason for that was it was knocking into a hose and causing a coolant leak. But it looks like that even up to 2023, they're following the same principle. No engine cover, all exposed. The E888 Gen 4 is right there for you to see in all of its beauty. All right, without further ado, let's strap these cars on a dyno and see what they can do. First of all, it's upset about a lot of things here, but don't worry about that. That's fine. We put the car into sport mode. We reselect the mode, so it's got some crackles. You have to reselect that, and then of course we had to go here and then turn the ESC system off. So now we can go into manual mode. We're gonna do these pulls in third gear because the gears are tall and the car is making, stock power levels. So now we've got the car in its sportiest setting here. We've got the car poised for this pull. So we're gonna do 2200 to 6300 RPM, just where the DSG upshifts to catch it just before it upshifts. So here we go, from inside the GTI. Zach, we got the moment of truth here. Car comes rated 241, 273.
Yep.
Crank.
Yep.
From the factory. Obviously bone stock car. We did two pulls. They're all both very close to each other. So it was very consistent in third gear. Now, how much power do you think this made?
So, because of the claims before, I've heard people say that Volkswagen likes to underrate their cars. So this will be wheel horsepower and on a dyno, Mustang dyno for that matter. And we're on 87. I want to say 200 wheel horsepower. They said 270 crank torque. So let's say 240. So 200, 240.
200, 240. Well, Volkswagen does indeed underrate them, especially compared to your expectations, because the car made 220 to the wheels and 262 foot-pounds of torque again to the wheels.
Wow!
You can see that the torque is pretty strong in the first bit of the pull here, and then it just kind of falls off after that 5,000 RPM. There's a little bit of a fall off, but that's not bad at all, given that this is a Mustang dyno that you're running 87 octane. It's good to see.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised by that.
Yeah, no, it's good to see.
Happily surprised.
It's a great starting point for you to mod this car and to add to it. And it's also a great place for us to now see whether or not the 93 octane makes any sort of a difference, or if they somehow spiced up the 40th anniversary for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So we're going to jump into that. We'll see. Thanks for bringing the car by, and hopefully we'll be seeing you here more once.
Absolutely.
Now that we've seen what the 40th anniversary does, let's see what our lovingly called poverty spec does on the same dyno, same day, same conditions, DSG to DSG. So really the wheels and tires are different, but we're going to do a load loss cal on here to make sure we account for that. And we'll see whether or not the 93 octane in this fuel tank results in more power than the 87 in the other tank. And we'll compare the power curves. We'll get data, and data is good because we're going to be tuning this car very shortly here, and these baselines are important. Same power and a little bit less than the 40th edition on 87 octane. So what we're going to do is we're going to do another pull, and this time we'll do it in fourth, because the higher the gear, the more you load the motor, the more exhaust energy you put into the turbocharger, and actually the cars end up making more power as long as they don't knock. And with 93 we shouldn't be knocking. And here is a fourth gear pull. So this is the 93 octane car, our dev car, and the power curve is here. And what I want to highlight here is the difference between a third gear pull and a fourth gear pull. So this is the third gear pull, which was consistent, and we made pretty much the same power across the board 3 times that we did it. This is the fourth gear pull, so it's going to pop up here in a second. It's a faint line. Now you can see that boost and torque peaked earlier, it came on stronger, and it stayed stronger. It made at least 15 more horsepower here. However, look what's happening here. You can see in the video the pull, so there's a calibration issue actually in the OEM tune where it probably heat soaked because it took so long to accelerate for fourth gear, because there's such a big gap in gearing between third and fourth, and because it heat soaked, it started to oscillate boost. So this is something that we're definitely going to be addressing in tuning. It should not oscillate like we're seeing it here. So it made just a little bit less than the 40th anniversary car with 87 octane. However, I don't think this has anything to do with fuel. I think actually it's making the same power whether you run the 87 octane or the 93 octane. So there's a pro tip for you. If you've got a stock GTI, you can run 87 and you can run 93, and this harkens back to our Mk7.5, our Rabbit, which we were also able to tune and pretty much achieve the same results on 87 as well as the higher octane fuel. But I think what it has to do is with the fact that the other car is actually having a little bit taller of a gear because of its wheel size. So we're gonna pull up his car here in a second. You can see here the dash line is the 40th anniversary on 87 octane, and the solid line is our base model on the 93 octane. And look at the curves. You can clearly see that the calibration is the same. There's no difference in calibration, there's no difference in hardware. He got a little bit more of a peak there and a little bit more top end. So fuel, once again, it doesn't make any difference. Look at the time. You can see that his took a little bit longer. So he actually has taller gearing through his wheel size, meaning that it loads up the engine a little bit more, it puts in a little bit more energy into the turbo, and that is the reason for his car making a little bit more power. So takeaway from this, the cars make similar power, or pretty much the same power, on 93 and 87. There isn't much of a difference between the 40th anniversary edition or the base car. Of course, we kind of guessed that one, and I think we're going to try a couple more things here on this car, but that's a takeaway from the comparison of two cars. On to the next test. All right, so as a final bit to this stock for stock comparison is I thought I'd throw in there something that's easy to mod. A lot of people jump into modding this. The filter, the air box. So we're going to pull this apart. We're going to see if there's any power to be made after modifying this air box and filter. So as you can see, there's a stock air filter in here. Now what we're gonna do, just for demonstration purposes, we're gonna completely remove this filter, and there is a snow guard trap in there, and I'm just gonna clean it up just to make sure we don't have any debris in there. Can clean it up nicely, and then we're gonna do a pull with no filter installed at all. So here we go. No air filter, nothing else changed. We'll even go ahead in here and turn off the comfortable AC to make sure no other power is being drawn away. Here we go. Ooh, downshift to the second. Let's try that one more time. Spooled up a little bit quicker, and it picked up just a little bit of top end. How much top end did it pick up? Well, about 4 to 5 horsepower of a nice quicker spool. So is it worth upgrading your intake? Probably. We're gonna get a full intake in the car and see how that does, but just removing the air filter from this one does seem to increase power just a little bit. So maybe a higher flowing air filter can do just a little bit more for you. Now here's another interesting comparison I'm sure you guys would appreciate. This is showing us the difference between this current car, the Mk8 GTI, and our Mk7.5 Rabbit on 87 octane. So both cars bone stock. Both cars, well, this one's on 93, the Rabbit is on 87, but we found out the Rabbit that, again, fuel, octane doesn't seem to affect it much in terms of the power that it can make, and this is the difference between the two cars when they are bone stock to bone stock, stock tune to stock tune. So we can see that spool up is very similar, but the Mk8 is a little bit more aggressive in how it brings in peak torque. It does have a higher peak torque here, so you can see that, you know, in this area, for example, you've got a difference of about 27 foot-pounds of torque between the two cars. And then up top, the Mk8 does have a little bit more power than the Mark 7. It's about 15 horsepower to the wheels more. So the Mark 8 with the E888 Gen 4 motor is a little bit more powerful than the Mark 7, but you can see that the characteristics between these curves is very, very similar, and it's very interesting to see. So I'm really looking forward to tuning this car and getting more out of it, because if we just jump into here when we just started tuning the car, and we didn't even, this is not even finalized tuning, this was still on 87 octane with just tuning on the Rabbit, and we were already leaps and bounds above stock power. I expect the same, perhaps a little bit more out of this car. So that's another cool comparison to see between the two generations, the 7.5 and the 8. Volkswagen did improve some things, did add a little bit of power, but in classic Volkswagen fashion, just a little bit of increments, and it leaves it up to us to really add significant performance. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. So we're gonna be continuing to build this car and taking it through the steps, and we're gonna make sure that we take you guys along with our tuning, our development, you know, the parts that we're gonna have for this car. We're gonna show you what works, what doesn't. You can reach us out on our website. The parts and the tunes are on our website, and continue following this content. Let us know what you want to see and what you're doing to your cars, to your Mark 8s, Mark 7s, Mark 6s. We're here to help you out. So until next time, cheers.